Hey guys, what's going on? It's Brandon, and in this episode, I'm just going to kind of talk some things through that are kind of crazy, but we're going to go there. So I feel like I'm just going to do a bunch of big key points, and then we'll deep dive into these points. So I'm going to kind of highlight where I'm going with all this. So I feel like the universe reveals to people who have amazing self-discipline, like the Albert Einsteins and Nikola Teslas, who have the big self-discipline to want to try to make the world a better place for all of humanity. And the world, the universe, I should say, God, whatever you want to call it, it reveals to you things that you need to understand why things are the way they are. And it kind of tests you, like it gives you a little bit of information, and then it sees what you do with that. And so I've talked about it before, and I'll talk about it again. Einstein basically on a real high level, he tricked you guys. I don't know how else to say it. Einstein knew what he was doing, in my opinion. He distracted humanity into bullshit physics on purpose to keep the world safe because he didn't want everybody building bombs. Fact of the matter is, Einstein's the one who wrote letters to the president and everything here in the United States and said Germany's building a nuclear bomb. And, so Einstein worked for the patent office. And what a lot of people don't realize is not until after World War II did the Secrecy Act of 1951 get implemented here in the United States. And that is what gave our quote unquote democratic republic the first taste of censorship in the patent office. Because prior to that, we didn't have censorship in the patent office. We had a true blue democracy where everything's out in the open, blah, blah, blah. But due to the advent of nuclear bombs and atomic energies and so on and so forth, they said we need to implement a lockbox classification system to classify patents which we find deemed dangerous. Einstein had already existed in a country over in Europe, a continent, you should say, where there was no free and brave democratic republic where everything gets to see the light of day. The patent offices where Einstein originally worked over there in Austria, Germany area, they already were being censored by the elites. So Einstein would have already been in touch with the elites who are basically explaining to the patent examiners why things need to stay classified. So if you wanted to put very key people, very reasonable people into a high place, it would be a patent examiner who basically audits the patents and says these can't see the light of day. So what Einstein basically did, a lot of people don't understand what Einstein did. We already have the observational, calendar, if you will, the schedules of what the moon and the planets and the stars and all these different things are doing. And so the Germans were going to town on trying to explain how gravity worked. And basically what Einstein did was he took a lot of different things that were already known. See, there's two different kinds of math problems when you're in school. In the beginning, it's like find the answer kind of problems, like what's 3 times 3? And you have to tell what the answer is. As you get into higher math, it says, okay, here's the answer. Now prove it. And that's completely different. That's where you have to show your work and prove it. So the universe gives us those kinds of problems. It's like, here's the schedule of the planets. Here's the schedule of the stars. Here's how fast things fall towards each other based on their weight and mass and so on and so forth. Now prove why this is so. And so what Einstein did was he took in my opinion, he basically cherry picked things that he knew to be true out of these papers. And what he did was he filled in, and you can call me crazy on this, he filled in he did trial and error, and this is fact, guys, this isn't disputed. He did trial and error of different kinds of math, call it geometries, call it systems, call it tables, different, I'm trying to think of the proper word right now, but it's eluding me right now, but he basically finally figured out through trial and error a way to get to the right answer without explaining the logical theory behind the right answer, okay, behind the proof. Instead, the theory that he gave is bullshit. And I'm not going to get into it because it endangers the world, but just know Tesla was right, Einstein was wrong, and there were many other people who had the same beliefs as Tesla. And I can explain very quickly. I've identified magic trick after magic trick and all the different proofs that Einstein put out. And I don't think that he necessarily worked alone. Obviously, there's the female who helped him out, but I don't think Einstein worked alone. I think that okay, so this is going to really catch you off guard, what I'm about to say. Think if you knew that there was going to be a super weapon that was going to endanger the whole world, where anybody could get their hands on this super weapon just very easily. Once people understand a certain level of science, they can build something as bad as a nuke or worse. Then think if your objective was to try to keep that suppressed. So it's kind of like you're like, we need to create like Amish people. We need to keep people in the dark ages to stay away from that advancement, right? I want you to think of the Jews, the Jewish elite, like Amish people, okay? I know that sounds silly, but I genuinely want you to think of them that way for a second. And then I want you to think about the Germans, and the Germans are doing all this scientific advancement, right? So right there, you have a clear clash of morality. You have your typical German who wants to create abundance and wants to create technological innovations. And you would have this, and again, you can say I'm wrong. That's fine. Great. I'm just saying hypothetically, follow me here for a second. You have these quote unquote Amish people that are very advanced. And one of the ways that they know that they can keep technology in check is by going in and fucking up economies. And so the world starts to make total sense now, doesn't it? It starts to make sense why royal banking and crime families suppress the masses, and it's like they fuck up the economies. Look at what happens when you have America and Germany and we're kicking ass. Da 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 da. Look at how inventive we are and we trade fair and da 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 da. Yeah, but what happens when those super weapons that you finally develop, when you have these technological innovations, advancements, what happens when those super weapons fall into the hands of crazy people, which there are crazy people. So 12 to 14% of the human population isn't even smart enough to serve in the United States military. It's like a statistic that was, it's like Jordan Peterson talks about it, and it's just these inconvenient truths that genetics mutate backwards more often than they mutate forwards. For every Ben Franklin or Albert Einstein that's born, you're going to have 1,000 mentally disabled people, okay, minimum, okay? Just the ratio of how things work, okay, here in reality with genetic mutation. If you take an Indy 500 car that just won the race and you put it in front of a bunch of, people who think that they know what the fuck they're doing, and you say, okay, now just tweak the Indy 500 car a little bit and make it faster, they're going to make it slower. They don't understand trade-offs. Same thing happens with DNA through just random mutations. More often than not, you get negative mutations instead of positives. So this whole thing about, oh, that's inhumane. Da, 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 da. No, humanity is just like any other species where you're going to have winners and losers. So when I was, let's just say, still in high school, I started to have this idea of, so Dan Brown, who wrote the Da Vinci Code, he was hanging out with my grandma. My grandma used to take Dan Brown to book signings because our family had this big private bus. And she used to take Dan Brown to like these book signing events up in Cleveland, Ohio, and just different places with her, group of her book study group, okay, of females, intelligent females. And, my grandma was smart in certain ways, but she wasn't the kind of smart I was where it was like technology and like really big picture stuff. She didn't keep up. I could lose her. And that's how it's been with everybody in my life. I can always just lose people because people go, whoa, back up. And it's like, okay, what do you want to talk about? And then what it is it becomes a belief system situation where people don't believe that they're that gullible that they would fall for magic tricks. So they don't believe that Einstein is that smart to view you all as rabid chimpanzees, that you, the vast majority of you, don't need super weapons. And so anyway, so I started coming up with this idea of creating my own fictional story. Because see, when Da Vinci Code and all these different books come out, people started theorizing, is this stuff true? Is this stuff true? And I'm like, this is stupid. All these people think that this might be a true story. What if you actually put together a story that is based on truth, where so many parts of it check out, and then the gaps that people say, that's Brandon's life. He says it's fiction, but that's his life. That's what he's done. And it's basically about me going and hanging out with these people who are like way above the law. And then some of those people give my character hints that 9/11 is going to happen before it happens, and to bet against airline stocks, which my character doesn't do. And then sure enough, 9/11 happens, and my character is very well aware that he's now hanging out with people who are on that level of the doers of 9/11. Okay, the ones who, and they're not Arab people. They're